Welcome to 15 Minutes in My College Corner, where your dreams for college become a reality. Today, I'm really happy to have with me a leader in the field of financial advisory services, a gentleman who I first met in Hartford when I did a symposium there, who has started a firm many years ago called Valark. And Valark is really focused on trying to help families understand how the college process and saving for college and financing for college fits into their full financial plan. So let me welcome Charles Wareham to My College Corner.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really happy to have you here, Charles, because you have always worn multiple hats over the course of your career. You're the founder and advisor and managing principal at Valark. But tell us, if you would, how you came to the understanding that college financing or college savings was such an issue for your clients, and how you focused your business on that.
Well, I kind of stumbled into it by accident. In the mid-'90s, I was a financial advisor at American Express Financial Advisors, which is now Ameriprise. And back at that time, if you were a financial advisor, your best advice for families on how to pay for college was go save more, which probably, I suppose, is a grain of truth to it. But along the way, American Express, to their credit, really recognized there might be some more finesse and moving parts to that. Now, they hired a gentleman away from the Department of Education named Mick Endersby. And Mick was the director of federal TRIO programs. This was a guy who had testified before Congress about the FAFSA. This is the guy that put the free in FAFSA. And he became a consultant for American Express to teach advisors that there are more moving parts to college funding. And I kind of marched in his army for a while and came to realize that this is a really powerful message. It's very timely, that families need this. And between Mick and I working together, we basically found a way to really develop what is the firm that is Valark now.
Well, it's really terrific. And you say just time frame wise, this was in the 90s, is that right?
Yeah. I want to call it 95-ish maybe.
So that's just about the time that the 529 college savings programs were started. And we were fortunate to have Dr. Peter Mazareas with us a while ago, and he talked about the founding of that industry. So I'm interested to know that you were there on one end, which was with, I'd say, the boots on the ground, with the families who were really having these issues, and Peter and others were in Congress trying to have these 529 programs passed. And how were you able then to introduce the work that was done on the policy level and in Congress and really put it in play for your clients? How did that process go?
Well, when the 529 became available, it obviously was the no-brainer tool to use to save for college, and we just integrated that into our message. In the past, we'd advised parents that the Education IRA would be a good option, or the Coverdale, but when the 529 came along, it really just blew those other options out of the water.
Yeah, Peter talked a little bit about the benefits there, but if you could tell us, Charles, I'm always interested just to know the family's experience, because when I talk to families, oftentimes it's late, they come too late, but you've had a relationship with this family presumably over a longer period of time. Is that a correct assumption, or how?
Well, actually, no. Surprisingly, not. The way that we meet most of our clients is through a seminar that we provide for area high schools in Connecticut. That really is the evolution of what used to be the financial aid night. And you know what I'm talking about. The guidance department brings in the parents to talk about the financial aid forms and what aid is available. That message has really evolved into a more comprehensive program of how to pay for college in general. The unfortunate reality is that most of the parents attending that program are parents of juniors and seniors. So they're very late coming to the game. And there's often this assumption that there's nothing that can be done at that point to save and pay for college. And I believe nothing is further from the truth. There's lots that can be done.
I hear that all the time, Charles. So when as you know, I've done some radio shows, and people call in and they say precisely that. My son's a junior or my daughter's a senior in high school, and it's really too late to save, right? And I say wrong. So when you're faced with that, how do you counsel families to think about that?
I try to advise families not to think of paying for college as a savings or investment project. Certainly it is, and certainly we want to save and invest, but by far and above, most families, it's functionally impossible to save and invest enough to pay for college outright. This is a cash flow project. We have to understand the dollars in, the dollars out that come from multiple sources. Maybe some of it is savings, certainly some from personal cash flow, maybe lending is a tool, scholarships and other Financial aid sources are a tool. We need to manage all of these various pipelines and understand them as they come into that bucket that we call paying for college.
So paying for college is really a plan for financing college, if you want to think of it in those terms. So it's not just one of these elements. It's
Certainly.
You're saying think across the board holistically about.
Right. I think parents get really frustrated by how expensive college is, and maybe their lack of the ability to save, and they feel like they're just defeated when they have these accounts that are not sufficient to pay for college. And I say, don't think that way. Think of that as, let's be glad we have that resource to begin with. But now let's marry it with the lending, the scholarships, the personal cash flow, and all the other sources as well.
And I think that the reality for a lot of families is what you're saying. They feel overwhelmed. And it's a very emotional time. I remember when my daughters were going off to college. Those kids at that age, they're beginning to separate. They're spreading their wings. They want to be able to be the adult in the equation. But we had a lot of skin in the game because we were going to pay for a big portion of this, and so there's all that emotional stuff going on, and then I think your comment before about defeat is really what makes me feel actually sad when I talk to families like that, because they've done a great job of raising their kid. They're trying to get them to have the dream of college, and then all of a sudden the reality comes in that the cost is so high.
Absolutely.
So how do you back them off the ledge?
Well, we have to understand that first of all, I think kids are driving this conversation. And I think kids have an expectation of a certain level of a college experience that might be more expensive than ourselves as parents have experienced. And you know what? Our kids have done everything that we have asked them to do. They did great in school. They were great kids. And we feel like we want to provide this phenomenal, college experience. And then we look at the price tag and say, oh my God, how are we going to do this? So I think it's really important to take the conversation back as a parent, and to say that there are some things that are doable, realistic, and affordable, and other things that are not. And a lot of times, especially with families with multiple kids, they're going into this with the thought of, we just got to get the first kid out the door and take care of the first year, without thinking what's coming down the pike, either 4, 5, 6 years down the road. We advise families to look at this as a total family picture, 2, 3 kids out the door over that span of time. And when you look at that, it helps you to understand what is realistic, what is doable, what is affordable within your family, so that we don't bankrupt ourselves as parents for our own retirement, which is coming up shortly behind.
Yeah, here to all of that. We're trying to raise that flag at Invite Education, and frankly, when we thought about what we wanted to do with Invite, we looked back and saw exactly what you're saying. It's not about the first kid, it's about the family. It's not about the fit academically and socially, it's also about the affordability fit. And the reality is, if you want to not become one of those headlines in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times about the $150,000 of debt and the $30,000 a year job, you have to plan ahead. And it sounds like you've really focused on that.
Well, we're trying to as best we can. I think the statistics we read in the newspaper are a little bit misleading. They say that the average amount of debt that a student graduates with is $26,000. And probably that's true in some circles, but in our experience, we're finding that most families are reaching beyond that to much more expensive schools, and it's not uncommon for a student to graduate with $60,000, $80,000, $90,000 worth of debt. That's a condo mortgage without the condo. And kids are bankrupt from the minute they graduate. They can't buy a house, they can't save for retirement, and frankly, they're a security risk at some companies who look at that debt and say, my goodness, what's to prevent this person from running off with company assets to settle their own debts?
And sometimes even worse than that, not to get on the downside of this whole discussion, but what happens if the kid doesn't graduate? Then I say they're 0 for 2. They have no degree, a boatload of debt, and they're 22 years old. It's just not what any of us want. And I think your point is just doesn't have to be that way.
Well, agreed. And I think the very first step in this whole process is to have a realistic conversation with your family about what is doable and affordable, and to come from a reality-based place. And I think too often we are going into la-la land in terms of what is realistic and affordable, driven by the expectations of our kids and our love for our kids. We want the best for them. But sometimes the best is not to spend $55,000, $60,000 a year to go to a certain school.
I agree. And one of the things that I like to tell families that, Well, our book, Plan and Finance Your Family's College Dreams. But what's the dream? Is the dream to get your kid into the most expensive school you can and then bankrupt yourself? Or is the dream to come out with a degree that makes sense with an affordable amount of debt? Maybe it's not from the brand name school, but from another school.
Right, and to find a great job, something you enjoy, get to work, be ambitious, bring all your skills to bear. We tell people it's not the college that you attend that matters, it's what you do at the college that you attend that makes the difference.
Well, that's some great advice. We're short on time now, Charles, but I do want to just take a quick diversion to the advisors of the world who
Sure.
are talking to these families. You were one of the first enlightened ones to understand the depth of this problem and offer some sensible, sound advice on how families can conduct themselves to keep themselves away from excessive debt and have a great experience for their kids and let them achieve their dreams. But what do you say to advisors out there who are trying to get on the bandwagon here and help their families the same way you've helped all of your clients?
I think it's really important to get on the right bandwagon, and there are some what I might consider bad choices out there, and these are advisors who are directing families to put all their savings into life insurance and annuities because in theory it doesn't show up on a financial aid form. That whole system is problematic, and I won't give you the details on it now, but we find that the better answer is for an advisor who really believes in this process and is willing to provide just about pro bono advice to a family to earn their trust, to provide value to that family, and to show the worth that they have to that family, which of course leads to what else do you do, which could be the routine wealth management and IRA rollover business. We recommend that if you do a great job helping the families take care of their kids, give them realistic cash flow models, help them get into the right 529, there's no way you're doing wrong with that, and it will lead to wonderful things.
Charles Wareham, founder, advisor, managing principal at Vaylark Financial. Thank you so much for being our
Thank you, John. I
guest.
appreciate it. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
I recorded my conversation with Charles on February 24th. We held on to it as a special way to close out Financial Literacy Month 2017. During the month, my College Corner was fortunate to have both a practitioner and a professor of financial literacy. As a practitioner, Charles literally provides real-life, real-time financial literacy lessons to his clients using college as the topic. We started the month with Dr. Margaret Brooks, a professor at Bridgewater State University and the 2016 Educator of the Year. Her life's work has been dedicated to passionately teaching financial literacy to individuals and practitioners. I hope you'll agree that opening Financial Literacy Month with Margaret and closing with Charles provided great insight into both the theory and process of financial literacy, as well as its practical application. Thank you for visiting my College Corner. Please send your questions, comments, and ideas to podcast@inviteeducation.com. And until next time, remember, saving $1 today is better than borrowing one tomorrow.